All right, all right. Good Monday morning. Let me know that you can hear me. We've got people from the UK. Archie's coming in from the UK. Brianna, I see you on YouTube. So good to have you here and everything. You know, some of you are new to this journey with me. I was doing this show weekly. Hello from Maryland. Lisa is in the house. Um, I was doing the show weekly. Obviously, the book and everything things got a little hectic and a little crazy, and so I took a break for a few weeks. But I last minute I was sitting there yesterday, which some of you noticed. That I decided, I want to get back in and do another money mentoring over coffee and try to get this a rhythm back in place and everything. So I, on a whim, decided to send an email out, which I did. Clearly, didn't follow it all the way through because it had April dates in the confirmation email. So, but that's what I get for doing things last minute. But you all are here and everything. My intent is to try and do this more regularly. So the idea behind it is to create almost a weekly or every other week type of show where we're having a conversation and I can answer questions and do that. There's no formal content. There may be, if something happens in the market, I'll typically talk about what's happened in the market and everything real quickly and everything. But it's really to support you and to have the conversations around money, around wealth, and the journey that you're on. It's not where I'm not trying to sell anything or anything like that. So this is really about supporting you all in the journey. So Brianna, so good to have you. And so I see a lot of people still jumping on and everything. So with that, I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces. And if you want to, I hear my dogs scratching at the door. I had to put him out because he kept chewing on things while I was in the middle. So it's like he kept next thing I know, he's got my shoe. He's got my, so it's like, dude, all right, you're out. I thought he was tired. I took him on the beach this morning and let him run, both of them, but guess not. So this is what this is for, is us having to have that conversation and everything. So I'm going to start off with kind of just what has happened in the market, some things to think about. And then I just kind of open it up. We'll go for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. I have another call at the top of the hour, and we'll do it again. And I'll try to make sure that I get the dates right in the confirmation email, so it doesn't get you all confused and saying and all of that stuff. So, but I'm human. But yeah, pets do not like closed doors, especially these ones. These ones just assume that, well, that's our fault. We had a dog trainer that worked with us, and the first half hour of every training lesson was her telling us how it was our fault that the dog wasn't listening. Yeah, and our dogs are actually really good. The neighborhood says they're so well behaved, and there's just little things that we need to work on. One actually is only 5 months old right now, so the other one's 3 years old. The 5-month-old, we almost changed his name from Samson to Mayhem, but he seems to be settling down and everything. So cool. So let's just talk about the market itself real quickly. I just wanted, and I do this because it's important. I want us to have a regular conversation around it, so you get used to the terms, so you get used to being in the conversation. And so all I want to say is that this last week, what has happened in the market, and just kind of give you an idea of where we're at, partly because I want you to stay in the game. So 3 indices that are primary indexes in the U.S. stock market: the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies of of the stock market. The the Dow, which was the very first stock market that was created, and it has 30 companies in them, and the Nasdaq, which is about 2,500 companies in it. Nasdaq is typically more tech heavy, so you're going to have your Apples, Microsoft, and things like that in there. Dow is the 30 stocks. S&P 500 is more broad based. You'll have tech, you'll have more industries. It's a more diversified indication of what's going on in the marketplace. So let's just talk about what happened last week and how they are for the year, because I think it's indicative of where we might be. The S&P 500, and those of you that can see my iPad, which you should be able to in a few minutes here. Let's see, did I get this done right? There we go, but it's not coming up. There we are. All right. So let's just talk about the S&P 500. Okay, last week and year to date. Okay, last week and year to date. Okay, so last week and year to date, last week the market, this was up only 0.7, so very a little less than 1%. Okay, you know, and then I keep having people coming in, but year to date, it's up 15.22%. So you're talking about call it 6 months into the year, because this is the last week of June. 6 months into the year, this is up 15%. Now, does it mean we're going to be up 30% by the end of the year? Not likely, considering also we have the circus called the election coming. Okay, who knows what's going to happen with that? But I just want you to understand that if we are not in the market, what are we missing? Dow Jones, this is the 30 market, 30 stocks, 1.61% up for the week. For the week, 3.81% for the year. Okay. Not as high, but remember, it's only 30 stocks. It doesn't have as much diversification and everything. I don't use this very much as a metric. I usually will work from the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, and S&P 500 more readily. The Nasdaq for the week, remember, this is tech heavy. So when you have tech stocks that have a challenge, like NVIDIA took a drop in the last couple of days last week, that's going to have an impact, especially since NVIDIA is such a big proponent, a component of NASDAQ. But here's the thing. For the year, 19.8% up. Okay. So I say this just so you kind of understand where we are. You'll see it over time moving. Because if we start to have these conversations, when we start to have these conversations on a regular basis, you'll get used to having the conversations and moving from it. Now, do I think that you can absolutely just double these because we're at the 6-month mark? No, I don't think so. I think that we're going to see that things are going to go up and down just like any market does. We had some good things happening in the first half of the year, and we stayed in the game, which leads me to another. Let me see if I have the graphic, because I want to show it to you. This is not my graphic, but let's see if, okay. So this is why one of the things that I want you to understand when we start to get into the investing game, and we can talk more about specifics and everything, and I'll open up for questions after this, is that the thing that we cannot do is time the market. And the problem is that some people will say, tell me when, Mel, is it a good time to invest? Now, my answer is the same no matter what is going on in the marketplace, because I look at it and go, if you're not investing, now's a good time to invest. Because here's what I know. If you're going to win the wealth game, if you're going to win the wealth game, you got to be on the field playing the game. You can't be in the stands watching the game, and you can't be on the sidelines just saving your money. Okay, there's a portion that's saved, but if I'm just saving, I'm not going to make it. I show an example typically of two people, Sally and Saul. Sally is if she let me go. I'll go back here and just show you the numbers. But Sally saves $5,000 a month, a year, okay, from age 25 to 65, okay, so 40 years. She puts away $200,000 in an S&P 500 index fund, okay? By the time she gets to retirement age, she will have about $1.5 million. Okay. Saul, though, I'm going to put him in a different color. We'll put red because he's freaked. He's scared. Saul is one of those dudes that's like scared of his own shadow. Okay. So he's going to do the same $5,000, the same time frame, the same $200,000. The only difference is instead of doing an S&P 500 fund, he says, I'm going to put it in a savings account because I don't want to lose money. I'm scared. So he gets 2% and she's getting 8%. By the time that he's ready to retire, she's got 1.5 million. He has 314,000. You can't save your way to wealth. This Saul is on the sidelines. At least he's in the game a little bit. But if you're not even doing that, then you're in the stands. I need you on the field. I need you doing what Sally's doing in a proper format. And the reason I say that is that too often I'll get calls or people say, the market's doing this. Can you tell me where the bottom is, where the top is, where the top is, where the bottom is? And I'll just buy and sell like that. Y'all, if I had that kind of crystal ball, we'd be in a different business. It's just, that's not the way it works. But here's the thing you need to watch. The trajectory of the market's up. The market actually is going up. It's literally going up eight out of 10 years. It's going up 8 out of 10 years. So, and when you take and extend long term, 10 years or more, your probability of being up is greater than 90%. So we're not here to invest in a short term, what's happening here. We're here to take a long-term view and say what's happening overall. This kind of movement here, this will give you the mood swings of an adolescent teenager because it is an emotional ride if you're not careful. I've been there. I don't want you to do that. I want you in the game, staying in the game. Now, let me go back to that graphic and why that's important. Going forward, because this graphic was something where they said, look, if you invest $10,000 in the S&P 500 from January 2003 to December of 2022, so a long time but they said, but you were trying to bounce in and out of the market. How would you do if you missed some of the biggest days in the market? Well, if you just stayed invested the whole time, your $10,000 would be $65,000. If I missed 10 of the best days, just 10 over 20 years, my 65,000 goes down to 30,000. I lose 50%. Okay. Here's the interesting thing. 7 of the 10 days, best days, took place in down markets. Okay. Took place in down markets. So, and if I miss 20 of the best days, I'm now down at 17,000. I literally lose almost 2/3. If I miss I just went over that 30 of the last days. So if I miss 30 days of the best days, now all of a sudden I've made $1,700 on my 10,000. That's it. I wiped out $53,000. Okay. And here's why this is not predictable and why I'm saying you want to stay in the game when you're in the game and not allow the emotions to take hold. I sat on the sidelines and I got hurt badly. I mean, I recovered, but bottom line, I didn't get hurt because I didn't lose money. I just didn't gain money. Okay. And that is this. In 2020, the second best day happened immediately after the second worst day. So you had a huge drop and a huge up. Okay. Brian, yeah, my book is on Amazon, but the best thing to do is to go to yourmoneymachinebook.com, yourmoneymachinebook.com. Because then you can submit your information after you buy it off of Amazon to get the bonuses and everything for now. Okay. So, so this is why it's important to get in and stay in. So you participate in all the up days. If you miss more days than 30, then you're losing money. Okay. I just thought this was a telling graphic for us to talk about. To really, really think about how do we get in the market. Okay. Now I see a note. This is a great question. I don't know if it'll bring it up because you did it as a direct. Let's just see if it does. Yeah, it does. Okay, cool. It says, what about people close to retirement? Should they take a little less risk as they have less time to recover from loss? Rita, great question. And all I'm saying, just so and then let me get to your question because it's a beautiful question to kind of lead off with. All I'm saying is I want you in the market participating. I don't want you on the sidelines. How you participate in the market is a different question. And your facts, your circumstances, your age, stage of life, all of that will dictate to the extent that you will put things in the market. In my book, Building Your Money Machine, we talk about the risk triad. We talk about portfolio structure. So you're right. As you get closer to retirement, then you will have, or let's just put it this way. As you get closer to using the money, you will take less risk. You will take risk off the table. In other words, I'm probably not going to be aggressively invested. I am not aggressively invested today for a handful of reasons. One, our money machine is big enough that I don't need to take undue risks. Two, I'm at an age, I will be 63 in September, and I'll be at a live event on my birthday. What the heck? All right. So 63 in September. So I'm not sitting back looking at, 40 years ahead of me. Now, hopefully I do. I mean, but you just don't know. So I'm not going to take as much risk. And then you look at it and say, if we have built something to a plan, a vision, a plan, like we talk about in Building Your Money Machine, and we are there, why take more risk and risk it? I don't need to. You don't need to. Now, so the shorter your time frame to needing the money, the less risk you're going to take. If you're going to need the money, honestly, in 5 years or less, in all likelihood, you're not putting much of it in the market at all because it is too risky. Okay. because the market can drop. It goes up 8 out of 10 years. But if you can't look through a 7 to 10 year window at least, then there is a lot of risk involved there. So Rita, you're right. As you get closer to retirement, you will participate in the market, but in a far different portfolio structure to make it happen. You're going to be less aggressive. It would be a much more conservative type of approach. So great question. Oh. Cool. All right. Let's see. I can open up for questions now and everything. I just wanted to kind of put the lay of the land. I know I've got some new people on. We'll do this more regularly, but just to open it up to have questions. Just so you know, this is being recorded for me. It will not be broadcast somewhere else. So your questions aren't going to go, we ain't taking your money situation and say, hey, let's take Kristen Miller's money stuff and put it all over the internet. We're just not going to do that. All right. Why do I record it? One, if I say something stupid or I say something genius, I want to know about it. But two, it's really more because some of you may or may not know, my primary profession historically has been as an expert witness, and I testify at trial. Now, I don't do very much of it, but I have 1 or 2 cases that I'm still in as they wind down because I'm really kind of retiring from that, and I've done it for years. But no offense to any attorneys that might be listening, but the attorneys are notorious for taking something that you might have said out of context and put it in front of you at trial and go, isn't it true, Mr. Abraham, that you said this? Well, I happen to know from doing this so long is that if an attorney starts the sentence with, isn't it true, he's got a 2x4 or she's got a 2x4 in her hand and they're going to smack me in the forehead with it. So I have it memorialized. So if there was ever a case like that, I go, can we get a recess? I'll bring you the full context of the conversation so we can have the right context. So I am recording it, but it is not, just so we're clear, these things are not meant to necessarily be cut up and put out in there. If anything was put out, it would be my side of the conversation and my recommendations, and not exposing anything. I want you to feel safe and know that that's the case. So I'm interested in your opinion about the possibly upcoming global currency based on. Everyone keeps bringing that up. I have no opinion on it, honestly. I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. I don't see it happening anytime soon. And the replacing of our currency, I get that they're trying, that there's a lot of talk about it, but I have not seen the evidence that sits back and says in the next 12 months, the next 24 months, that there's going to be a currency swap. So I'm not that concerned about it right now. Now, maybe I'm naive, but I don't think so. There's you got to look at the bent and you got to look at the bias. There's a lot of people that are talking about it, and they're the ones that are in the cryptocurrency place, and they're the ones that are trying to drive cryptocurrency values. So, Michael Saylor, he makes a living by driving the cryptocurrency values. So, I mean, I get that he's considered an expert, but his feet are firmly, and his net worth is firmly embedded in our belief in that situation. But the fact of the matter is, Bitcoin, if you look at it, what's the utility of it at this stage? Is there a business model behind it? Is there cash flow behind it? Is there growth behind it? If I invest in Apple versus Bitcoin, Apple's got a business model. Apple's providing utility. Apple's got a business plan. It's got cash flow. Bitcoin's only way of going up is getting someone else to buy it at a higher price. That is the definition of a pyramid scheme. Sorry, that's just me. Okay. Is it possible to follow the book steps to build a money machine in Europe as well? Can I follow the same process as Bill? I live in Italy. Appreciate if you can advise, Alexandra, I'm coming to Italy, coming to Florence. My wife and I are coming to Florence in the end of October. So love Italy. So here's the thing. When I wrote the book, the book is principle-based primarily, okay? Money, principles, wealth, principles, doesn't matter. Geography, doesn't matter. Markets, doesn't matter, any of that. Now, there is a section in there that we talk about index funds and ETFs and some of the accounts that are US based. So that one section wouldn't be as applicable in a different country because you may not have the same types of accounts. But Canada has retirement accounts just like the US. UK has retirement accounts just like the US. They may be treated slightly differently for tax purposes, but the principles that are being taught are the same, because wealth creation and wealth building is the same, no matter the country. So that's how I intentionally tried to write it, where it wasn't just for US based. So if you look at it, I think there's 19 chapters in the book. I should know this off the top of my head. There might be one chapter, I'm going to say 1.5 chapters, because some of the protection stuff, anytime you talk about protection and legalities, it actually is going to be dependent on the country and state that you're in, because California has different laws than Nevada. So some of those, what you want to take away from it is the principles that we're using and apply them based upon the environment that you're using them in. But 98%, 97% of the book is applicable, and the principles are because they're money and wealth principles and not nuanced investing in the US. Okay. Great question. Sybil says, what does she say? Oh, what is a good platform for trading? Where do we find good advisors? Can I trade a US platform being in France? I think you can. I'm not sure. I think you can trade, but let's handle your first two questions. But I'm going to handle them in a different order. For trading, I do not want anyone on here to trade. Okay, there's a difference, and I talk about it in the book. There's a difference between trading and investing. Investing is a long-term view, okay? Trading, and I do trading, they're two different environments. They're two different ways to do it, and everything. Trading is a job. If you could see my screen, you can't see the screen, but I have a screen up here that has stock charts on it. And I'm watching the stock charts. If I'm only in one trade, and it's not really a trade, it's a long-term trade. But if I was trading, if I had the time to actively trade, I'm staring at this screen. I'm going, oh, it ticked down. I'm selling. So I want to be really clear with our words, is when everything that I'm talking about in the book is sustainable wealth investing. It is not trading and try to trade in and out of a stock based on chart movements and volume and things like that, and moving averages, which is what technical analysis is called, is what trading typically does. So assuming investing, then the first thing is, I'm going to go to the next question, is you probably have access to platforms similar to a Vanguard or a Schwab or a Fidelity. I want discount platforms. What I want you to avoid is any platform that gamifies investing. Any platform that gamifies investing. For instance, Robinhood would send off fireworks when you bought or sold and made money. What that's doing, and why I'm saying that is a dopamine hit. That is an emotional response. And when we bring emotions into our money and we start to make emotional decisions because our dopamine hit, we start to overtrade, overinvest, and do things because of the fix we're getting and not because the finances we're getting. Okay, does that make sense? So I avoid anything that gamifies investing. I want to make sure that it's done based on principles. Where do we find good advisors? At the beginning, I'm going to tell you, you probably don't need an advisor. When you go through the book and I tell you how to do the portfolio allocation, bottom line is when you're building wealth, I want you to start with an unshakable foundation first. That's why the wealth priority ladder is built the way it is. In chapter 12, I talk about the wealth priority ladder. It's built in a way to give you an unshakable foundation. Things are going to happen. Life is going to happen. How do you navigate it without getting absolutely destroyed? You have the unshakable foundation, you have liquidity, you have some things in place. Then from there, you will start investing in a diversified portfolio of stocks. Why? Because I want you, like, if you invest in the S&P 500, you invest in 500 companies. If one of them goes bad, you don't go to the core of the earth with it. You actually have the ability and the opportunity to sustain yourself for the long term because it's a diversified portfolio. Now, that means that you're going to put together, and I talk about it in the book, one of four portfolios at the very start. A one fund portfolio, which would be a target date index fund, low fee, or a 2 fund, 3 fund, or 4 fund. That's it. You don't need an advisor for it. You don't need an advisor to tell you what those are. What you do need an advisor for, and where they come in and why I have a wealth team, is not to pick the funds necessarily, and not even to get access to the funds. I can get it off of Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, any of the platforms, but to help with the other things. If you have cross-border, for instance, if you're in a situation that you're in France and you have cross-border stuff in the US, you need advisors that can navigate that kind of situation. As you get closer to times in your life where you are trying to, you're transitioning to putting kids through college or empty nesting and moving into retirement, there are things that are going on from a financial plan standpoint that you would use the advisor for, but it's not really just to pick the indices. I don't think you actually need an advisor at the very beginning until you have critical mass or you're going through some life changes. Okay. In the book, I do talk about, how the kinds of questions to ask your advisors. Your advisors are supposed to have 3 characteristics. They are there to be an educator and teacher to you. They don't see that in many cases. They see themselves as the person that's running your finances. No. They're there to educate you. Your hands are on the steering wheel. I want you empowered, educated, and equipped to make the choices. They're there to advise. Okay. Second, they need to have bought into your vision. The very first part of the book is talking about your vision. They have to have bought into that vision. Their job isn't to sit back and say, "Oh my gosh, Lisa, I can't believe that vision's way too big, Lisa. How about we kind of get your head out of the clouds?" No, their job isn't to criticize your vision. Their job is to facilitate the accomplishing of it. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to make it magically happen. My team, when I sat with them the last time, I said, "Here's what I'm envisioning. Here's where I want to go. Here's what I need. What do you need from me?" And they said, "Can you get us $200,000 a year for the next 3 years?" "Yep, I can do that." "Good. I do my role, they do their role." So it's not for them to say you can't do it. It's for them to put it on the table and say, "We can do this, but this is what it's going to take from us and from you." Okay? So third is that they have to have the soul of a servant, because they're serving your aspirations, your vision, but not just yours, the legacy and your generations and beyond. God forbid something happens to me. My team knows that my family is the next line. And my family knows that they're the ones that are going to take care of it. But they also know that my wife's got her hands on the steering wheel. My son's got his hands on the steering wheel, that they don't take over control. They just replace me. Okay. I tell my wife I'm not replaceable, but I guess I am. So that hopefully that helps. Oh, that's okay, Missy. Yeah. All right. I am starting late. I am in my 60s. I am reading your book. What do you suggest my first priority should be? Evelyn, this is a great question. Um, so this is something to just kind of understand. In fact, I literally just recorded a video yesterday that's going to come out in a few weeks about, the feeling of starting late. So you still, depending on health, obviously, you still have a good decade ahead of you. Okay. That doesn't mean you get reckless. But when you start to say what your first priority is, I'm going to say the unshakable foundation. If you have debt, I got to get you out of debt first. Okay. I got to make sure you have liquidity and you have your debt under control. That doesn't mean that you have to be completely out of debt. It just means that the debt is getting paid off in a short period of time. If you don't have debt, then I just need liquidity, and we start getting you investing in a not overly aggressive way, because you've got probably a decade before you need the money. Now, here's the thing: a lot of times people say, "Well, I'm going to retire at 65 or 70," and you think that you're going to need the money at that point, but you don't need all of it at that point. You just need a little piece of it, because you're going to live for another 20, 30 years. And so you're going to take a little piece at a time. So know that it doesn't all have to be solved in the next 5 to 10 years. You have a little bit longer runway to do it. But being totally frank with you, at 60, if we're just starting out, you've got the biggest thing that you can do is, one, unshakable foundation. Two, we got to figure out your income. In other words, I got to get the biggest doggone shovel I possibly can to throw at this. So I want to elevate my income, manage my expenses, and get control of my debt. Those would be my first priorities. Then we talk about investing. Okay. Archie, great question. Ray Dalio talks about 12 to 15 percent of uncorrelated assets in a diversified portfolio. Well, I'm not sure what Ray Dalio's definition of uncorrelated assets are. Did he not explain it when he talks about it? I mean, if you're going to say something like that, explain it. Here's what typically uncorrelated assets are: they are assets that do not go up and down with the market. Simple as that. They are not correlated with the market. So when the market goes up or the market goes down, then it doesn't go down with it. So you can have certain types of assets, sometimes real estate, sometimes precious metals. All those things can be non-correlated. You can look at more uh, certain utilities are not necessarily correlated with the market, because we all need electricity. We all need, you know, th- those kinds of things in place. So what he's talking about is an uncorrelated asset is something that when the market goes up, it may not go up as fast, or it may not go up with it. And when the market goes down, it doesn't go down with it. So it's not following the market. So if I'm in an S&P 500 index fund, that's what the market's doing. It's going up, it's going down, it's 15% up for the year. But I have other assets that, like, in fact, in my portfolio, I have a managed futures portfolio, commodities type of portfolio that is not correlated with the market. But just understand this: when I look at that piece of my portfolio, it is underperforming the rest of the portfolio because the portfolio is going up. This isn't correlated with the market. So it's not going up as fast, or in fact, it's going down. So that's the trade-off if it's not correlated with the market. But it is meant to reduce your risk exposure. So Christine Schmidt, can you give some advice about indicators, investment parameters, or how to choose a good under? I'm not. Is your advice to? Oh, So Christine, my advice at the beginning will always be, remember safety first. I do not want you investing in individual stocks. Because it is too risky. If you look at someone, I have an example that I use, First Republic Bank. This poor guy invested in First Republic Bank, $200,000. He posted on Reddit that, oh my gosh, I invested in First Republic Bank. It's now down 50%. What do I do? Now, this is when Silicon Bank went under and all that stuff. It was during that time. And he's asking Reddit, a forum, for advice. First mistake, you do not go to a forum for advice. You do not go to something like that. You don't know where the advice is coming from. You don't know their expertise. And then everyone's got an opinion. Okay? Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean they have expertise. Doesn't mean that they've got the right thing going on. So he loses 50%. I'm not sure what to do, he says. A few days later, he posts another one that says, oh my God, it's down another 50%. Now he's lost 75%. What do I do? Then there's a line at the bottom. It says, by the way, this is everything I had. I don't think he ever got out. I think he lost it all because it went to zero. You don't put that kind of exposure in when you don't have the solid foundation to sustain yourself. I am sitting in a couple of individual stocks. Now, the ones that I'm in will not go to zero. Well, I mean, you can't say they won't, but likely they will not go to zero, okay? Apple's not going to zero, okay? But I'm not taking the risk with my portfolio, and I will work from an index and an ETF, low cost, low fee, primarily. If you look at my portfolio, 90% of it is in diversified index funds and low cost ETFs. That's it. And then I have my sliver that I am investing in individual companies. And if they all went to zero, I guarantee you, I will pout for a week. I will eat horrible food. I will complain, but it will not destroy me. And that's what I'm trying to get to with you. I would not, there is a way to look at companies, fundamental analysis and technical analysis. And I go through that in one of my other trainings, but it's not where I want people to start. Not when we're trying to build sustainable wealth. Could you hit it out of the park? Yeah, there is a possibility you hit the next NVIDIA. Or there's the possibility you get into NVIDIA as it's at the top and it drops 20-something points like it did. That's what I'm trying to get you to avoid. So I don't know that I answered it, but hopefully I gave you some perspective. Marianne sent me a direct message, so you guys can't see it, but that's okay. Multiple illnesses, chronic illness. I'm sorry to hear that. And money is tight. Spent over. Oh my God, I get it. Being a cancer patient, survivor, I get it. 75,000 in healthcare alone over the last 9 years. So just out-of-pocket expenses doesn't include the cost of supplements and changes in food. I am with you on this journey. When I have money to invest, you just kind of jumped out of the way. When I have money to invest, I feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start. What's a good first step? Marianne, if you don't have the book, I want you to read the book. I want you to go to the book and I want you to take it one step at a time. The book also comes with a workbook. When it comes to investing, you're going to follow the wealth priority ladder. You're going to first make sure that we have some level of liquidity in place. We have control of our debt, and doesn't mean we're out of debt. We have control of it. Okay. And now we start to invest. And like I said, you will start in all likelihood with either a 1 fund, 2 fund, 3 fund, or 4 fund portfolio. That's it. I want it simple. I don't want you to have to make a lot of decisions. I don't want you to have to run, 32 spreadsheets to try and figure out which one's the right one. I just want to make it easier for you to do it. That's how you're going to start. But I want you to just start one step at a time. Follow the wealth priority ladder. Obviously your health and your well-being have to be the priority, because the other side of it is, can I elevate my income to make it easier for me to do this? And if you can't because of the health issues, I get it. So we work within what we can work within, and now we manage expenses, we manage debt, and we follow the process so we're not complicating it, because otherwise you will end up in overwhelm because you're staring at charts, you're staring at all these funds. Man, make it easy. S&P 500 index fund, low cost, low fee, you're in, let it roll 8% over the long term. 59% of the time, if you look at it over a 20-year period, 59% of the time it is over 10%. 90% of the time it is over 8%, 8% or more, if you're looking at it over a 20-year period. So you got to look through long-term views. Here's about me all this you can deal with. I love it. Um, do, do, do. She says, oh, this is a long one. All right. Yeah. You have a wealth priority ladder where you have 9 to 18 months of peace of mind. Can you talk about this fund? Does it cover all your expenses? So it should. What I would prefer, okay, is I want it to cover your peace of mind fund is to cover all your expenses. Okay. And so remember, it's to allow you to continue your life the way you currently have it. Now remember, if you go through the process of building to financial freedom, you will pass through 4 gateways. The first gateway is financial stability, is allowing us to pay for just our survival. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. Financial security is when I can pay for my survival and my current expense structure. That's what I'm talking about. Is that if you had to stop for 9 months, 18 months, you have the money. Now, where do you land in that 9 to 18 months is dependent on your situation. I'm not dogmatic about it's got to be 9 or it's got to be 18. It's a range, and the range is determined by your circumstances. If you have let's say you have 2 incomes in the household, then maybe you're down more towards the 9 months. Let's say you don't have 2 incomes in your household, you're the primary income earner in the household, and you have kids. And you might be pushing to 12 to 18 months. Let's say you're getting into the higher ends of age, and you're thinking that maybe I'm going to slow down and not work as much, so the regular active income is going to slow down. You might push towards the 18 months. So I'm giving you the boundaries and some reasons for it, but I want it to cover your expenses, so you can breathe and keep going. Okay. I think 90% S&P, 10% high risk, such as Bitcoin and tech stocks. Okay, I'm not sure. That's not a question. Oh, thank you, TL. Other questions? Anything else? I've got maybe a couple more minutes before I have another call. My group, my master's group that I got to jump on. I hope that you found this valuable and that you're finding it helpful. Let's see. Let me just see. Why in the world would Linda? Okay, so I'm going to YouTube because it's not on here. Why in the world would someone invest that much money in one place? Linda, I wish I knew. but people are doing it, and they're doing it because they believe they know better, because they sat back and they said, oh, this one's going to the moon. I did it in the Ponzi scheme. I didn't know it was a Ponzi scheme. Lost 1/3 of everything I owned. Okay. I get it. Healthcare medical sector tends to perform. The stock market is in the red. Yeah. So there's things that are just always counter to the market. Okay. So absolutely. So I'm going to keep doing these. I will send out emails a reminder with this link. It's the same. It's the same link every time for the Zoom and everything. I like being on Zoom because I can see your faces. And I don't get a chance to see y'all on YouTube or on Facebook because I have some people on Facebook also and everything and everything. So if you get a chance, jump on the Zoom link so I can see you. It says this is coming from YouTube. How can you stay in the game with a small amount and without knowing anything about the stock market or assets? Financial markets for me are complicated. I read about it, but I forget it easy. Matt, I think it's Maddie. I get it. So here's why I'm trying to take the complication out of it. I don't need you. So I don't have a regular watch here because I've got an Apple Watch. But when I look at the watch, I don't know how the watch works, but I know what it's telling me to do. And so I don't need you, and I don't want you to feel like you need to know all the intricacies of the market. But what I do want you to know is how the market operates and has operated historically, and how to take advantage of it over the long term. And so now you look at it and you say, okay, the S&P 500 market, just a couple little things will help. The S&P 500 market over time, over a 20-year period, any 20-year period except for one, any 20-year period never went below 4% return. 90% of the time it was at 8% or above. 59% it was at 10% or above. So with that, you sit back and now couple it with this. If you look 15 years for any active hedge fund manager, the top guys and gals with the best algorithms, the best computers, the best information, the big companies, the big money behind them, 84% of them couldn't beat the market. So if the top people cannot beat the market long term, they do in a year, 2 years, 3 years, but then you're trying to guess. And if you get the wrong year, you lose. So if the top people can't beat the market, then what we need to do is buy the market. Buy the S&P 500 index or the total stock market index or something diversified like that, and know that 90% of the time over the long term, over a 20-year period, it's 8% or above. 59% of the time, it's 10% or above. Okay. Based on historical results. Doesn't mean that's what the future is, but let's look at just now. The year to date, S&P 500 is up 15%. You didn't need to pick a stock. You didn't need to pick a company. Could you have picked a company and done better? Yeah. You picked NVIDIA, you'd be great. But if you picked another company that went down, you wouldn't be. But if I picked the S&P 500 and just bought that index fund, low cost, low fee ETF, I'd be up 15% this year. No complications. Try to keep it. If it feels complicated, we're doing something wrong. That's the reason I wrote the book the way I did. I don't want it to feel complicated, complex, or anything like that. I simply want you in the game. And if you, as Maddie, as you're learning and growing, you don't just jump in all feet. If you sit back and say, I can get into an index fund for $100 or $500, just start there. Watch it. Have the conversations and see what's happening. And if you're unsure about something, come back to these calls, ask it. I'm more than happy to try and to guide you. Okay? Great question. Cool. You have to, depends. I'm looking for a downsize my house. If I sell my current house for a significant profit, then I'm better off paying cash for the next house. Let me see what it says. Or getting a mortgage and putting the first house proceeds in an index fund. Wow, Rebecca, this is a much more, so I don't have an answer without knowing more information, and I don't have the time to go get the more information. But I will tell you this: if you look at buying a house, so one of the big things is what's your age? You know, age, stage. What other assets do I have? What other debt do I have? It's not a singular answer, a singular question to answer. There's multiple aspects of it, because if we take on debt, now we take on a 15 or 30-year mortgage at a high interest rate, doesn't make it affordable, versus if I put it into an index fund and it's going to grow, and with that debt, I got to look at some numbers. I don't have an answer. But if we can postpone it to the next call, I'm more than happy to chat with you in more detail about it. Yeah, you got to analyze the whole thing. Awesome, Rebecca. Let's bring it up and we'll walk through it and see what happens. I'll let you know in the Facebook group if Missy, let me know about it. I don't know what's going on with Barnes & Noble. We gotta get on them. So if you haven't got my book, go get my book. It's a lot of stuff that I'm talking about is in there, yourmoneymachinebook.com and everything. I hope that you found this call valuable and helpful. And I hope that I'm going to get a chance to see you and more of you and on the calls as we continue to do them. All right, y'all. I got to jump to another call. Y'all rock. Keep crushing it, and know that financial freedom is your birthright. Let's go claim it, and let's work together to make it happen. All right. Cheers to y'all. See ya.